So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Steve Grossman. He lives right here near me in Westerville, Ohio. He is the owner, founder, and president and CEO of Green Creative Marketing. He's been doing a wonderful job here in Columbus. He's made a big difference. And I would say that he is a charter member of the organization that I just created, The Power of One. Steve, you're on.
Thanks, Arlie. Thank you, Willie, also. I appreciate it. I got started while I was in college at Ohio State. Like a lot of us that were going to Vietnam, or a lot of us heading to Woodstock, it was a different time back then. And when I was finished with all of those good things, my family was in textile recycling. And they were pretty successful. They were making wiping cloths for the government out of clothing that was not being used by Salvation Army and Goodwill. I went into paper recycling. There was one little person in Columbus doing it, but nobody on a major scale. I didn't have a book to read. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody. I winged it myself and lost my butt the first year. And I was saved a little bit. And the second year, I realized what my mistakes were and grew it to be the largest privately held paper recycler in the United States. 6 facilities, almost 1,300 associates involved. And we did traditional paper and plastic recycling. There is nothing unique or anything else like that. It's just, we were a people company. We worked with the customers. We wanted to know what they wanted. And we did a lot of alterations to make it work for these people. Maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, one of the customers came to us and said, we have a problem. This was McGraw-Hill. Our problem is we cannot recycle our textbooks because of the hot melt glue, the cloth, the bindings on the book. The paper was fine, no problem. It could be easily recycled. But to cut the binding off threw it completely out of the realm from an economic standpoint. So they were landfilling at the tune of about $6,000, $7,000 a month of landfilling. And we started working on it, and we found out they were right. Everybody told them the truth that you could not do traditional paper recycling with it, because in a hydropulper that beats up a product, the hot melt glue and everything else gets on your finished paper. So we said there has to be a way to do something else, and we had absolutely no idea. While I was walking in Home Depot, I saw insulation in a bag. And I said, how hard would it be to chop this up, spray fire retardant on it? So I got a bag of insulation there to see what it was, how it was, so on and so forth. Went to a paper mill that was no longer operating and said, would you like to start chopping up textbooks and putting fire retardant on it, putting it in paper bags? And I went back to Home Depot and they bought it. So we developed a way to eliminate landfilling for McGraw-Hill. For textbooks, we saved them on the average of $6,000 to $7,000 a month. And we said, this is an opportunity that's untapped, but you really have to start working on it. And I had a friend who was going into the restaurant business here in Columbus. And he made this statement, the answer is yes, what's the question? And that really hit home, that there's so many people say automatically, no, we don't, or no, we can't, or no, we're not interested because it's not our traditional cup of tea. Recycling's changed. Recycling has totally changed. People that want to spend their lives talking about recycling, talking about being green, talking about improving our world, it's wonderful. You can also make a living, a very comfortable living in recycling, but it's not the same as what it was. Today, people want to solve their problem, to reduce their footprint, to become more sustainable. And let's face it, the majority of these people have already been recycling, but they're also taking materials to the landfill. So you need, or we need, or whoever needs to come in with a whole different approach. How can we help you? What is costing you money right now? You may not have the answer. Most of us don't. But if you have a business going, you have an income some way, start devoting your time to what people aren't doing instead of what people are doing. And let them know you want to work with them. You need them as your partner. You're not there to do it alone. And I made a list of just a few items we've done, and each one is sort of interesting. And these are not small little companies. These are pretty big companies that we put a blurb on Instagram, I think, or something like that. And we started getting people. We said the answer is yes, what was your question? And it really hit home. We want to know what you're unhappy with, what you need help with. And when they realize that you're approaching this from a different standpoint, that you're going to devote the time, people to go to, people to contact, and 9 out of 10 may have no answer. But there's that one you're going to always find that can help you a little bit. And these will give you some ideas. Our biggest claim to fame was what Arlie was talking about. And that was several major candle manufacturers. They had literally hundreds of thousands of obsolete candles. The wick was too high, the wick was too low, the scent wasn't the scent it was supposed to be, or whatever, or leftovers, and they've been landfilling them. And these are not little companies. And they wanted to know what can be done with a candle. Well, maybe we could melt it and use wax again, making new candles. Well, that was ruled out pretty quick because you're stuck with the wick, the metal element, you're stuck with the smell. And so what else can you come up with? That won't work. And that took care of 9 out of 10 people that were trying to figure it out. Well, we didn't know. One day I was contacted by Dole Fresh Vegetables in Springfield and Freshway, and they had a problem. They had waxed cardboard that they had produce in. by the millions of pounds, and they could not recycle it. It was being landfilled. And so we started talking and found out, lo and behold, there's also sawdust with contamination in it that's being landfilled. And when we were building a fire, we said, wait a minute, why don't you mix all of them together? What we came up with was Envirolog. It's well known all over the country. And it's a starter log for fireplaces. And it was patented. And we now consume all of the candles, all of the wax cardboard, and all the contaminated sawdust. And that was a huge, huge coup because it showed things can be done. Well, from there, a lot of other opportunities started coming up. Some you'll never think of in a million years. Owens Corning, a multi-billion-dollar company, was spending $1 million a year landfilling the trim of the pink fiberglass when they were cutting fiberglass. But they couldn't reuse that fiberglass, the trim. They couldn't put it back through because in the process, something was added to it and it could not go back, and it was cheaper for them to landfill it. Well, landfilling is one thing, but when you spend over $1 million a year landfilling, it's going to wake you up and your stakeholders. So we started working on it, and they paid us as a consultant. It was 1.5 years they were paying us before we came up with the solution. Their product now goes into outside picnic tables, decking, furniture, parking blocks, and makes it lighter, but just as strong. It's a solution that was never heard of. One that we all know, Burberry Clothing. Now, this is a tough one. This is a real tough one because they were so exact that they did not want to take a chance on seeing their brand out there where it's being denigrating their first line. And you can't remove the name Burberry and still not have something that's everybody has seen. The colors, the pattern. So we had to figure out how to take care of doing that. Well, we did. And it's now being used as an oil absorption when there's large oil spills in the water. This is encased in material that absorbs oil and water. But again, it's a solution. And I can go on and on and on. I can go into food waste if you want, no problem there. A lot of uses for food waste. Animal feed. We did the whole food waste program for Kroger, all of Kroger. And the food waste went to make a highly enriched black mulch from Ohio mulch. And they bagged it and they called it Black Diamond. What do I know? They turned around, sold it back to Kroger. And Kroger used it around their standalone stores, but also had the influence to put it around shopping centers. So their story was unbelievable. Yes, we make a waste product. Our flower shop, the flower, you smell, the produce, and the meat department, all was being landfilled at every store. They have eliminated that cost. And they're buying back their product less than what they used to buy mulch for. And they put it around their store. That is a full circle, true recycling program. We put it together. One other that I'll just throw out was we were on Meg and I were on a cruise, and we saw up in Alaska open top containers with marine rope. I didn't know marine rope was at the time, but it's huge diameter rope that holds these ships and barges and things like that. And they do break just about every couple months. And they are made out of polypropylene. They are made out of cotton, several items, but they are filthy. I mean, if you can imagine what adheres to them when they're in the ocean forever. And what they do is throw them away. And I saw it in the open top and I asked what they did with it. And they said it goes to a landfill. So I started checking into it and I found out that the largest container company has millions of pounds of this all over the world. And they're not a standalone. Every one of them has it. So I said, why can't it be recycled? Well, the problem was it was commingled. The problem was it was so filthy, with so much adhered to it, you couldn't just wash it off clean in a traditional system. So we started looking into it. Cargill couldn't believe that we wanted to even try it. And we did. And we succeeded. And we found a company that could process exactly what was wrong. They could get it for half the price of what they paid for clean material, and it costs 20% more to clean it. They're saving 30%. They were so excited, this consumer, they were more excited than Cargill was when they found out they could save millions of dollars a year. And this company makes plastic pallets. They make shells and bodies for lawnmowers, John Deere lawnmowers, and other products like that. That's our story. And it's recycling in a true form. When I hear it's too hard to do, or when I hear it can't be done, I just sort of smile. We've done it. We are doing it. We do not operate the businesses. We are a consultant. And we put the generator with the final consumer, and they work on it forever. We are paid as a consultant. We're through and we're through. There are no guarantees, and there's no book to look at or no show to read or hear about, and no teacher to teach us. We're doing it as we go along. But as Cameron said, the answer is yes. What was the question? We will work on it. So that's my story. And hopefully it will help people that the opportunities today in recycling are fantastic. They really are. You need to be a little bit creative. You need to have a lot of fortitude. You need to stay with it and find how you can do something good for people, not just sit back and make money. You need to figure out a way to put something together with your client in partnership to solve what they need to get solved. There you have it, Arlie.
Steve, that was a very, very compelling story actually a real life story and experience that you just exchanged with us. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to do so. As I said, Steve and I, we have known each other for some period of time. I've seen him in action. I know what he can do. He's been a part of the Ohio Recycling Coalition now for some time. He has basically taken something that people have thrown away, as we discussed yesterday, and turned it into something that is valuable and useful. I love the story about Kroger's. It reminded me of a guy that had a used store. You could buy used furniture and whatever. So one day he was out traveling around. He noticed this guy had taken this. Now this was back in the day when they had box springs. You know, there wasn't anything covered, just bare metal. And he threw the springs out in this dumpster. And JD went back that night and picked it up, took it back to his shop, fixed it up a little bit and painted it green. The guy came into his shop the next day looking for box springs. And so JD sold him back his springs.
I love it.
But anyway, Steve has so much information and knowledge about what he's done. And, you know, one of the things, and I think you ought to take this into consideration when you're looking at someone, if you need assistance in your work and doing a job, whatever, Steve is an advocate of hiring interns, and he's trained those interns. You might want to tell us a little bit about some of the interns that you've turned into successful CEOs. Steve, just a little bit about that, and then I'll open the floor up for other questions.
Sure, no problem. I realized I couldn't just do it alone, and a lot of our staff and a lot of the people were working in the various facilities. And I kept saying, if something happens to you, there's no one else there that knows what's going on. So I said, I need to train a young person and teach that person, but they have to work with me. Well, lo and behold, about that time, a young lady in her very early 20s from Moscow, who couldn't speak English, was looking to go to college and work in the United States. And she had sent out, get ready for this, 3,000 resumes all over the world. It came to our HR department. It filtered its way down to me. And I'm saying, what, you gotta be kidding. I can't even talk to her. And all of a sudden people said, you ought to try it. And I said, this is great. And I came home, talked to Meg about it. And she thought it would be sort of neat. And so we agreed. We took care of everything, brought her over here. She arrived at the bus station, long blonde hair, carrying a paper sack with a knapsack. That was it for 1 year here. Could not speak a word of English, but she knew the word chocolate. And when we went to dinner that night, Meg tried explaining the menu and that didn't work. So when it came time to order, she said chocolate. And the server said, well, we have chocolate cake, we have chocolate milkshakes. And Masha's going, yes, yes. So her dinner was chocolate cake and a chocolate milkshake.
Oh my God.
Anyway, I got her to work with Mike Coleman for 3 months in the mayor's office. Mike Schwartzwalder, the lieutenant governor, lieutenant to him, then went to SWACO for 3 months, then went to ODNR for 3 months, and then worked with me for 3 months. At the end of her first year, she loved it so much, she stayed. She then went back a year later, finished her schooling, applied at Fisher here in Columbus, Ohio State, where I was doing lecturing in environmental science. And she was after her 5th attempt, because the bar is very high for, let alone in-state, out of country. But she ended up getting in. She got her MBA. She's gotten married. She has 3 darling little girls. She is an adjunct professor at Ohio State Environmental Science, and she is almost finished with her PhD. Along the way, however, and this is what Arlie's talking about, she needed to work, and Coca-Cola was a sponsor for the Olympics. She applied as the head of their environmental program before the Olympics, setting it up. They hired her. The following Olympics, Dow jumped on her and hired her. So her resume is sitting there with Dow Chemical, head of environmental, Coca-Cola, head of environmental, Grossman Industries, which brought her here and did the training, but a lot of people did. And now she's going to be teaching at Ohio State starting next year. That's one of our interns. The other was some young man that absolutely did not know anything about it, but he had an affinity and couldn't get it out of his system. I brought him in, we trained him. He stayed with us for 11 years. He wanted to go to bigger and better things with a bigger presence on the East Coast. And there was an opportunity with a friend of mine at Weyerhaeuser. Brian was hired. 20 years later, he is now executive vice president of Weyerhaeuser. So we've had some interns that have been very successful, and they're doing very well, and I'm thrilled about that. And I think that's what recycling is all about. I think it's more than just picking up your cans or your food or your paper and recycling it. It's working with people, and it's improving people and companies. There you have it, Arlie.
Perfect. What Steve just mentioned, those interns, that is the basis for the pathways to environmental leadership. It's people like Steve and some of you out there that are listening, some of you that will be listening to this recorder in the future. You all can make a difference in the lives of young people, basically pointing them in the right direction, showing them how they can make a difference, not only in their own career path, but in the career paths of others that they're going to experience in their life journey.